All right. Shalom, shalom. I'd like to start off by saying Barak Yahweh, Barak Yahweh Shai, Kol Halon La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bachak Wadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect, the scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwat that's listening in. Yahweh Roth is our Lord willing that the lesson is edifying. It's the brother Shabab Amawan back at you with another lesson. And going into the title, losing money, losing weapons while everyone else is gaining. All right. And Lord willing is straight to the point, short. And what I wanted to touch on real quick, all right, is how America's spending so much money on the war, right? On developing weapons and you're actually wasting a lot of money with this Iranian war by using all the weapons that they have, all the artillery that they have. And, after a while, you begin to run out, okay, of those weapons that put so much money into. All right. And what happens is that, you don't have as much weaponry, all right, artillery as you did when you first started the war, you see. But while America's losing all this money, all right, making weapons and then using the weapons and then they're using all their artillery, all right, same thing is also happening on the other side, right? Same thing is happening where Iran, they have to use their weapons and all the money they invested for their weapons and and they're being used. But the thing is that there's no one to continually help America give them, artillery and weapons. But see, Iran and all these other nations do, because Iran is being guarded, all right, by Russia, you see. And something that I was meditating on before, I was like, pretty much this is what made me bring the video up. Not only that, a couple of videos I ran into, it just had me thinking like, all right, Iran is winning the war, so they must be using a lot of their weapons, all right. But the thing is, as they're losing weapons, they're also gaining weapons because, like I said, Russia is bringing artillery to these Iranians, man. So is China. China's supplying Iran with weapons. So it's like a never-ending thing. You see, it's like as they continually use their weapons, they're also gaining more weapons. And America's just losing weapons and using them, but they ain't gaining anything, you see. And that's a beautiful thing, because that shows that America's just gonna be so defenseless at the end of this war, and especially when the time comes of, all these nations coming together against America. They're not going to be able to have any type of defense system. It makes more sense now, that when the time comes, that's why this place is going to be hit so hard, man. There ain't going to be no weapons for America to use, all right, because they're so busy using it everywhere else. They're so busy waging war on all these different countries and just using all their artillery and weapons that they have, man. So when the time comes, all these nations going to have enough from supplying each other, but America's just going to be this lonely ass country that just doesn't have enough weapons to, to go against the world, basically, and call Elohim La Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, because that just goes to show you, all right, how the Lord is stripping, all right, America down, taking America down piece by piece, little by little, you see, making it shameful, right? As a matter of fact, let's grab that precept real quick. They're going to be brought down to the ground, okay, as the scriptures say, right? This is Isaiah 47:1, and it says, "Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate." You see, it says, "Take the millstones, grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover thy thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered. Yeah, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance and I will not meet thee as a man." You see, so their shame is going to continually spew out. All right. And like I said, man, call on him like Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, because see, these devils have the pride of thine heart has deceived thee, man. You thinking that you're this powerhouse, that you can't be touched, that you can't be brought down to the ground. All right. But the Lord is showing it every single day clearly. You see. So let me grab these two videos real quick. All right. This is how America's spending money, right?
The Army spent $533 million on a new artillery shell production facility in Texas that was supposed to help rebuild the supply of 155s. The goal was eventually 30,000 new projectiles every single month. Guess what? Absolutely zero projectiles have been made. This wasn't just a little bit of a factory running behind.
And why? Why? Because they're so worried about, again, waging all these different wars, man. So they got to account for all this shit, man. You know, they can't just be going to wage war here and wage war there, and it's not going to be a very expensive thing. So where's all this money going? All right, you talk about $533 million. Where the fuck is that shit going? Okay. It's going to Esau's NWO, worrying about making his new world order, be brought forth, you see. But he not accounting for everything else. And see, this is why the scriptures talk about how they're going to be they're always in so much debt, right? Let's grab that real quick. This is Habakkuk 2:6, and it reads, "Shall not all these take up a parable against them, and a taunting proverb against them, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that laddeth himself with thick clay." You see? Yeah. Meaning what? He's constantly in debt. All right. NLT says, "But soon their captors will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. You become rich by extortion, but how much longer can this go?" You see? And again, when you go into that thick clay, it goes into heavy debt. All right. So it makes perfect sense of why we always in heavy debt, because they wasting the money that they're supposed to be using for particular things and wasting it on other things, you see? So let's go back.
That robot arms were catching fire. There was stuff smashing into equipment. Drops and hunks of raw steel were being thrown around. There was this one machine that kept cracking artillery bodies. In short, it is absolute chaos. The factory opened in 2024 and was promoted as a highly automated advanced manufacturing operation. The Pentagon IG Inspector General found that by March of this year, they still had not produced a single usable artillery round. Here's where it gets frustrating. $26.3 million in progress payments has been made. $2.5 billion to General Dynamics has been received in other contracts since this nonsense was shut down. Now, General Dynamics says they actually are saying that they've met the requirements. This is crazy. Now, the Army is trying to get that money back. The Army needs artillery shells badly. We've used a lot. But this kind of desperation is just insane. To me, as a taxpayer and a military retiree, this is criminal. And I believe that people should be arrested. What do you think? The The Army spent $533 million.
So he said it himself, man. The Army needs weapons, man. Our military needs weapons bad. Okay, and it's not looking good for them at the end of the day, man. All right. Now, on the flip side, like I said, while America's losing money, losing weapons, right? Everyone else is gaining, and this is a perfect example of how, right? And this is a perfect example of Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, right? Let me grab that real quick. Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38, and let's just go straight to the point, right? And it says, 4, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company of bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. So this is the Lord putting the spirit back into Russia to be able to have all these weapons, draw out all this weaponry that you have, right? Draw out your power, okay? It says Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, and Gomer. All right, so you're talking about modern day Persia goes into these modern day Iranians, Ethiopia, Libya going into these Africans, right? Gomer going into these Turks. You see, these are all nations that Russia is being a guard on to them. You see, Africa's already is already guarded by Russia. They deal with each other, right? You see how Iran, Persia is constantly dealing with Russia, constantly dealing with China, you see. But right now the focal point is Russia. And then Gomer, all right, eventually Turkey will leave being an ally to America, and they're going to be guarded by Russia. Okay, it says the house of Togomar of the north quarters and all his bands and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company. See, listen how this is sounding. Be thou prepared, right? Russia's going to be prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company. So prepare for yourselves and the other countries that you're guarding. Prepare them also. You see that it says all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. You see. NLT says, get ready, be prepared, keep all the armies around you mobilized, and take command of them. Yeah, see, so they're keeping them mobilized, they're keeping them afloat, you see. And as Iran continues to use their weapons in this war, right, and lose their money and their weapons, they're also gaining because Russia is a guard onto them. They're also gaining from China because China deals with them, you see? So it's like they're never really running out of weapons. They're supplying each other over and over and over again. And see, this is pretty much one of the reasons why America's pretty much losing the war, because Iran just keeps getting fed, you see? So now let's go to the next video that I want to bring out real quick. All right. Give me 1 second. Now this is Steve Ram, right? Steve Ram's from YouTube. It says breaking: Russia ships bombs to Iran. You see, so that goes to show you again, all right, how they continually keep, they keep on feeding Iran with the weaponry, the artillery that they need. You see. Let's grab this.
You're invited to join Phoenix Energy's next webinar, where you can drill deeper into our bond offerings. We currently offer.
developing news coming out that not only has the conflict between the United States and Iran escalated, and we're hearing we're going to be going in the direction of more war, but in addition to that, we are now hearing that Iran is being armed by Russia with bombs and drones to help aid them to escalate the war even further. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest headlines coming out today so that way you can see it for yourself. August 18th, 2026, Russia shipping drones, explosives to rebuild Iran's supply after U.S.-Israeli strikes. According to reports, we're hearing that they are preparing for escalation. Now, we had heard speculation that Russia might be getting involved in the conflict. Take a look, about a month ago.
And best believe they're going to get involved in the conflict because it's Bible prophecy that these things would happen, you see. And he just said, you just heard it out of his mouth, man. That they're supplying them with everything to continue the war, you see. And that's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You see, this is all prophecy taking place. This is how, this is what it means when the Lord said he was going to hit, you know, Babylon hard where it hurts, man. This is where the pride of thine heart has deceived them, man, that they think that they're going to be able to continue on in the war. They're going to continue to be the top, you know, country that's a powerhouse. Nah, those days are over, man. And on top of Iran being fed by Russia, all right, all these other nations around the world right now, all right, that were once weak are now saying they are strong. Why? Because they have the same capabilities, man. They have the same exact type of artillery coming to their countries. You see, when you look at it through the spirit, all these nations together are working in cahoots with each other. They're secretly coming against America, right? As the scriptures say, all right? And I ain't even gonna play the rest of that video because that's the point on that, all right? But like even the allies of America, as the scriptures tell you in Obadiah 1:7, in the NLT, it says, all your allies will turn against you. They will help to chase you. They're going to help who? The rest of these other nations that were not your allies, that were against you. You see? They will help to chase you from your land. They will promise you peace while plotting to deceive and destroy you. You see? Your friends, your trusted friends will set traps for you and you won't even know about it. Okay? So they've been setting these traps on the low. Okay? And again, it's all the will of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai to have the beast take the whore and burn her with fire. All right? To have, you know, wake up the mighty men and bring them all to war, to set themselves array against Babylon the Great, as the scriptures tell you in Jeremiah. All right? Let's grab that real quick. Jeremiah. Let's take it from which one do I want? Slovakia, hold on. This is, let's set, no, so yeah, Jeremiah 50, right? Let's take, let's get 50 and 9. It says, for lo, I will raise and cause to come up against Babylon an assembly of great nations from the north country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. For thence she shall be taken, their arrows shall be as of a mighty expert man. None shall return in vain. All right. Drop down to 14. It says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she has sinned against the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You see? And the Lord has woken up the mighty men of war, as it tells you in Isaiah, all right, 14th chapter. Let's take it from 10. Matter of fact, let's take it from 9. It says, hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee. Even all the chief ones of the earth it has raised up from their thrones, all the kings of the nations. You see? NLT says, in the place of the dead, there is excitement over your arrival. The spirits of the world leaders and mighty kings long dead stand up to see you. You see? It says, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp, meaning what? The pride, is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? You see? So eventually, because this is the future prophecy of America, all right, that they're going to eventually fall down, man. They have become weak like the nations were once weak. The ones that were once weak are now saying I am strong, and the one that was strong is now have become weak, like those weak nations that were back in the before. You see, and why? Because they have literally, all right, as it keeps saying, it says, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven; I will exalt my throne above the stars of Yahweh. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit." You see, they want to be like the Most High. They want to exalt themselves on a high level. All right. But the Lord said that they will be brought down to the ground. Okay. As it tells you back in Isaiah. All right. Isaiah 47, and let's take it from 7. And thou said, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou did not lay these things to thy heart, neither did remember the latter end of it. You see why? Because she has spoken in that spirit of, you know, that she can't be touched. That's why 5 says, sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called the lady of kingdoms. You see, she has that spirit of wanting to be, all right, untouched. Okay, but hey, all good things come to an end, as we know for sure, right? Down to 10, it says, I'll take it from 9. It says, actually, you know what? Let's take it from 8. It says, therefore, hear now this, thou that art given into pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. But these two things shall come to thee in a moment, in one day, the loss of children and the widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. None has said, none seeth me. Thou hast said, Salakia, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it has perverted thee. And thou hast said that in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me. Therefore shall evil come upon thee. Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee. Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. You see, and that's the end result for Babylon the Great, man. Without them knowing, all right, they're gonna get smacked so hard. You see, they're gonna get smacked on a whole nother level, man. They're not even gonna know how fast it hit them, how the Lord came out of nowhere. That's that thief in the night. Because they're so caught up in their pride, you see. But again, call Elohim La Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, all right, for continually, you know, breaking the legs of this place, man. Taking body part away, each body part away from Babylon the Great, little by little, you see, till it's nothing, all right? So that's pretty much the point. Hey, Shalom, Malak, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai Barakatah. But that's pretty much the point. Just wanted to touch on that. All right. As these devils continue to lose money and lose weapons, right? All these other nations are gaining from each other, you know, and helping each other out to keep themselves afloat in this war, to eventually conspire against Babylon the Great to destroy it. All right. All these nations round about her, all these nations around her, including the allies, you see, because the end game and the end result for Babylon the Great is to be destroyed from New York to California, never to be inhabited again, you see. So I'm going to leave it there through the Spirit, Lord willing, that you will edify. So with that being said, Barak Atah Yahweh, Barak Atah Yahweh Shai, Kol Haloyim La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bachak Kodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect that scattered abroad, the Akim and the Akwat that was listening in. Yahweh Rathas, our Lord willing that the lesson was edifying. To the next one, Shalom. Keep fighting the good fight of faith and doing as good soldiers of Yahweh Shai. A Bible ball soon, real soon. Shalom, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Atah.